A history of treating mental disorders. In this course, we're dealing with the complexities and challenges of treating mental disorders in the 21st century. But this isn't a new problem. Every society throughout human history has come up with their own solutions and strategies. So, we're going to walk through the fascinating, disturbing, and often cyclical history of treating mental health disorders in the Western world. Not just because we risk repeating our history if we don't know it, but because we're still living with its legacies today. The Greek physician Hippocrates was one of the first recorded physicians who tried to understand mental disorders as physiological disturbances rather than possessions or divine punishments. Cures ranged from bloodletting to purgatives, and family members were the most common caretakers. Medieval Europeans regressed somewhat, tending to associate mental illness with witches and demons, but they also permitted the mentally ill relative freedom to roam. As recently as 2014, when I taught a class in Austria, I saw a man with schizophrenia hallucinating on the street, and a citizen told me that he would probably just be encouraged to move on to another town and given a free train ticket. By the 1600s, however, Europeans increasingly began to isolate people with mental disorders. In some cases, they were housed in dungeons and prisons, sometimes chained to walls. The Enlightenment saw one of the first eras of widespread concern for the treatment of the mentally ill, and some sporadic reforms. French physician Philippe Pinel forbid the use of chains and shackles in his asylum and recommended fresh air, exercise, and sunny rooms. This is not to say those reforms were universal. In the 1840s, U.S. reformer Dorothea Dix observed mentally ill people housed with criminals, left naked and in darkness, without heat or bathrooms, chained, beaten. Over the next 40 years, she lobbied to establish 32 state hospitals. Dix actually visited Kentucky's Eastern State Hospital twice. There was also progress on the scientific side. German psychiatrist Emil Kraepelin took a step toward categorizing mental illnesses in his research. He distinguished between manic-depressive psychosis and schizophrenia. The 19th century reformers had high hopes. They thought that humane treatment, good science, and hospitalization would cure mental illness. It didn't. Hospitals became overcrowded, and conditions deteriorated by the end of the century. New theories emerged in response to those failures. Psychoanalytical therapy gained prominence, including the talking cures developed by Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, and others. Last summer, I flew into Carl Jung's town of Zurich, Switzerland. I also visited Freud's home in Vienna and acquired this postcard. Another round of reformism followed, but all was not well. Clifford Beers published his influential autobiography detailing his degrading, dehumanizing experience in a Connecticut mental institution. New treatments emerged, too. Drugs, electroconvulsive therapy, and surgeries, including lobotomies, were used as treatments for mental disorders. Some of the new treatments even worked. A series of successful antipsychotic drugs were introduced to control the symptoms of psychosis. Lithium was used to treat manic depression. But as we've seen again and again, new solutions brought new problems. Reformers criticized the institutionalized, restrictive, and sometimes oppressive nature of mental health care. King Kesey's novel, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, is based on his experiences working in the psychiatric ward of a Veterans Administration hospital. This later became a movie starring Jack Nicholson. In the 60s, these criticisms had shown results. Seriously mentally ill people were beginning to be removed from institutions and directed toward community-based mental health homes. The number of institutionalized mentally ill people dropped from 560,000 to 130,000. The following decades saw new medications and advocacy groups. The National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, NAMI, was founded in 1979 to advocate for people with serious psychiatric illness. The EKU Psychology Department has a student NAMI chapter, by the way. In the 1990s, a new generation of antipsychotic drugs was introduced, atypical antipsychotics, which treat schizophrenia more effectively and with fewer side effects. But community-based health care and housing and new treatments haven't solved all our mental health issues. Many communities lack adequate support systems, and today 1/4 to 1/3 of homeless people are estimated to have a serious mental disorder, such as schizophrenia. Even more concerning, a recent study found that more than half of the prison population suffers from a mental illness, and only about 1/3 of them have received treatment. Clearly, our institutions and social systems aren't doing enough. The challenges and solutions must continue.